Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining Coach Dana W. I'm here with another interview, Life After Divorce, Turning Your Pain into Power. And I have a special guest, Miss Jasmine Smith, on today. I want to give it a few minutes for us to be able to share this post because this is going to get real deep and real serious. So let's give it about 2 to 3 minutes for us to be able to just let our friends, our family know we're on, share this to all of your networks, and we're going to get this on and popping. All right, make sure you're following me, okay? But yeah, let me just get a few minutes to share this to my other pages, and then we will get this going. But how have you been doing today, Miss Jasmine?
You know what? I've been very productive today. I was actually very proud of myself for all of the things that I accomplished. I'm in this season right now of not kind of redefine I feel like I'm redefining who I am, but
Mhm.
not so much who I am, not so much who I am, but how I do things.
Okay.
So I've been doing a lot of going through my files and go removing the things that I don't need. I have like 40,000 pictures in my cell phone.
40,000.
Yeah, right now I have like 40 something thousand pictures in my cell phone, pictures and video.
Is
Yeah. So I'm someone who I just don't get rid of things. So I'm just cleansing and I'm removing those things, especially like as the memories come up. I'm realizing that as I get older and I move on and I don't need to see these things anymore. So just removing a lot of clutter from my life. And that means like I spent a lot of time today unsubscribing from emails
okay.
that I'm not shopping with or don't plan to shop with. Don't ever click on their emails. I actually unsubscribed from some coaches and companies that I have done business with or really look up to and saying, you know what, I really don't need that. Not that I need to invest in another coaching program.
Right. That is so true. I think coaches, we follow other coaches and it becomes clutter. I'm just going to keep it real because sometimes my timeline is full with nothing but coaches. I don't know what's going on in the regular world because everybody's just making a sale and a pitch to each other.
Yeah, and I think that when we do that, I feel like I'm comparing myself. I'm trying to see
Yeah.
what they're doing. I am wanting to subscribe to things or do things and feeling like, oh, maybe I can keep that in my schedule. No, I am completely booked. I do not have time to take any classes, courses, webinars, nothing. I don't want to sign up for anybody's challenge. I don't have time to read another book. I will buy your book. I will, it seems like all of my friends are starting businesses. It's great. I will share your stuff.
You're
You
just
know,
in a winning circle right now. Let's look at it that way. You are in a winning circle, and
yeah,
sometimes they always say you have to move up. So they say if you're the smartest one in your circle, it's time to move to another circle. And so that's how our circles expand because we never want to be the smartest. You always want to be willing and able to learn from somebody else who knows more than us. And so I think that's where you are in life. Like, you need a little bit more.
yeah,
You
that's
need
exactly
more.
where I am. So I'm just clearing out the old and saying and clearing everything out. I'm getting rid of pictures. I'm getting rid of, like, I've literally been deleting memories and things that we hold on to things and we let those things come around in our memories every single year and we let it hurt us and we spend time thinking about it. And I'm like, I'm over this. I don't need to spend time thinking about this anymore. Let me just go ahead and delete all these pictures. Let me delete this text thread
But
because I
look,
don't know what I'm holding on
some of
to it.
these memories. We need to talk about some of these memories tonight. We need to talk about some of these memories tonight. So don't delete and get rid of all of them because I need you to
Right.
reflect on the past to be able to tell the audience how you have been able to turn your pain into your power. Have you been able to turn your pain into your purpose? And so let's go ahead and get into this because I think this is going to be a really good conversation. just chatting with you prior to coming live on this, I was like, oh goodness, they have no idea what they about to join into tonight.
Come on,
But
come
I'm
on.
going to read your bio because you have a wonderful, wonderful bio, and I want to share with the audience who we are talking to on tonight. So let me get into this. Jasmine Smith, created under pressure, brilliant, resilient. Jasmine Smith was an unwanted child born to a teenage mother who later became addicted to drugs and alcohol during the rise of the crack epidemic of the 80s, 90s. Nevertheless, she rose from the block to the boardroom, overcoming adversity, understanding the need to shift her own outcome in order to impact future generations. She is an award winning advocate, speaker, business strategist, an author with many years of experience as a behavior and relationship professional. As a trauma survivor who has spent nearly 20 years in advocacy, Jasmine believes in addressing emotional wellness and mindsets to live a successful life, both personally and professionally. She boldly addresses real issues faced by Black Americans while giving an up close and personal look at the effects and its impact. Her passion to enhance individual lives, families, and communities is seen daily in her work as the founder of Hive Experience Agency and her nonprofit, Operation Behave, which focuses on empowering youth. I love it. Her mantra, live to eat. Enjoy, attract, transform governs the way she chooses to live her life boldly and authentically as a woman of passion and purpose who is also the life of the party. By sharing her stories with humorous candor, transparency, and perhaps the most admirable of all, no apologies. And we don't want any apologies on tonight. I want you to be your true, authentic self, Jasmine, as she continues to deliver a message of hope. She lives in Virginia with her outspoken, rebellious Gemini teenage daughter. She put that in there, Brianna. And you can learn more about her at iamjasminesmith.com. So I love the website name, I Am Jasmine Smith. Anything else you want to add about Jasmine Smith that we don't usually talk about and want to even share in our bios? What else did you want to tell the audience about you before we get into these questions?
Oh God, I've never been asked a question like that before. You know what? As much as I enjoy mental health advocacy and overcoming trauma, I love to shake my ass. Okay, I'm a twerker everywhere I go. So if you know what, from the block to the boardroom. Okay, we twerking and I'm working. I used to joke and say that all the time. They be like, "Are you working?" I'm working and I'm twerking and I'm working. That's what I do.
Twerking and twerking.
Like me.
Seven dwarfs whistle while you twerk, right? Either one. I love it. You love to dance. You like to have
I love to dance.
Hey, Melissa. Hey, Candace. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get into these questions. So, y'all, I was talking to Jasmine, and y'all. Anyone who knows me, I keep it casual. I keep it fun. This is not your Q&A session, okay? So, I was just listening to you. I was like, what do you want to tell me about your marriage? How old were you when you got married? What'd you say, Jasmine?
18.
18. Not only that, you said which one?
I did. I was like, which time? Yeah.
She said which one, y'all? And I was like, okay, well, how many times have you been married? 3 times. So we're gonna go in a little order. So let's start with the first one. You were 18 years old. Tell us about that marriage.
So, I mean, I was 18 years old. I was right out of high school. I was in the military, and I happened to be home. I'm from Las Vegas, so if anybody knows Las Vegas, it's a thing. I mean, people get married for fun in Las Vegas all the time. I never thought that it would be, but it ended up being me. I had been dating him in high school. We were kind of on and off, and we had talked about the advantages of being married. You know, the different benefits and stuff that you get from being married while in the military, and I was already active. I was stationed at Fort Benning. And so I was already kind of like integrated into military life. And I was seeing the differences in how you're treated when you have a family versus you don't have a family. You know, access to cell phone calls, not having to live in the barracks, not having a curfew. And not, let's not forget all of the extra money that you get. And to be 18 years old and to have a significant increase in your finance, your monthly finances, we're talking $3,000-4,000 a month. You
Right.
know, it seemed like the right thing to do. So it was something that we discussed, but we never, it was like, I'm not getting married. Like, we're too young to get married. I just happened to be home in Las Vegas. We were hanging out. We actually were at the strip club and
Mm-hmm.
leaving the strip club on New Year's. It was New Year's Eve that turned into New Year's Day. And we were walking down the street and there was all of these people that were downtown. It was early in the wee hours of the morning, 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And this guy walked up to us. We must have been his last client for the day. He must have been wanting to hit a number. He walked up and he was like, y'all want to get married? And he went down on the price. Next thing you know, he went down. He was like, $30. $30, you get an 8x10 photo. You get this. Boom, you married. And he turned to me and he was like, you want to get married? And I was like, no. He was like, nigga, you don't want to marry me? And he was like, why not? And I was like,
So that was your proposal.
that was it. 20 minutes later, we was in and out of this place.
You said 20 minutes?
20-30 minutes tops. We were in and out. We went and got a marriage certificate, right? We literally walked right to the door, paid a fee. We were in and out in 5-10 minutes. And, you know, people don't realize that marriage certificate, marriage license, you literally can walk right into the courthouse.
Yeah.
You can be in and out of the courthouse in 30 minutes and be married. And that's exactly what we did. We were in and out of the courthouse married. We got our marriage license and the guy was waiting right there at the door. He was like, come on, rushing us.
So is that how you imagine your proposal? Of course, when we get married, it's like, I'm getting married. This is my one and done. We don't think about getting married and divorce. We think about marriage being a lifetime thing. So when you're getting proposed to, is this how you imagine the proposal is supposed to be? How your wedding day is supposed to be?
Well, to be honest, I never even seen myself getting married. I never put myself in a position to be someone, to be the woman that a man would be interested in, just based on my upbringing. I mean, I wasn't raised around a bunch of people who were married. I can't remember, besides my grandparents who also didn't even live together. I can't remember anybody being married. I've never been, the first wedding that I ever went to in my life was my own. So I never thought about being married before. I never thought about being proposed to. I grew up with a lot of self-esteem issues. And so I would say that at the time I wasn't work. I never ever dreamed of how is the man going to propose to me someday, or how is my wedding going to be. I never thought of it that way. It never was something that I thought was for me. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something that I was after. Love and relationships, the way that I was raised, I'll tell you this, and this may be a little bit off topic, but I was 15 years old and my mom walked into the bathroom when I was 15 years old, right before my 16th birthday. And she said, can I curse?
Is it like how bad?
Huh?
Look, how bad is it? I want you to be true to yourself, though. Go ahead, say what you need.
Did you say I could curse?
Say what you need to say.
My mom came in the bathroom and said, you fucking yet?
Mm.
And I was 15. And I said, no. And she said, yes, you are. And I said, no, I'm not. She said, you can tell me the truth. And me and my mom, I was in the bathroom about to get in the shower, and we went back and forth, and she was questioning me about whether or not I was having sex yet. At the time in my life, I had no interest in having sex, having a boyfriend. Boys didn't like me. I didn't like boys. I was a loner. I was a loser. You know, I was the candy girl, you know. I was the candy. Need candy, I got you candy. I was the hustler. That's what nobody was interested in me romantically. And so when my mom was asking me these questions, I'm like completely oblivious. I'm like, do you know what they say about me at school? Like, I am not the girl that anybody wants to have sex with. And my mom told me, well, if you do, I hope you're getting paid for it.
Your
If,
mom
or if you are, I hope you're getting paid for it.
Mhm.
And she went on to tell me that sex wasn't for me. and that it felt like a man peeing on you. And then she made me get in the tub, and she turned the water on, and she ran the water on me and told me that that's what sex felt like.
Wow. And I'm so glad you're being honest. Like, you asked me, could you use profanity? But sometimes we do need to hear the rawness. We need to hear people real story, because we're so stuck on censoring real life. And when we can't explain what real life feels like, we really make things worse for our children. We make things worse for trying to explain the pain, the trauma that we've experienced, because we're trying to walk on eggshells so we won't offend somebody. And so to hear you say that, one of my questions I always ask about childhood trauma: how has that affected your decisions when it comes to relationships? How has it affected your decisions when it comes to getting married? And you telling this story, you was like, you probably don't relate, but it does relate, because you're talking about self-worth. You're talking about your self-esteem. And a lot of the things that we do start at home
Mm-hmm.
as children. So tell me, how did this childhood, where you probably didn't even know it was childhood trauma, you thought it was life, how
Mm-hmm.
did this affect you when it comes to choosing men in your life?
Well, I didn't want men. And I always thought, if if having a man and having nice things, I was always raised to believe that a man was supposed to be there to provide for you and give to you. And if you had nice things, then you didn't provide that for yourself. A man gave it to you. When you wanted to have shoes or cars, you wanted your bills paid, it was always a transactional thing that I seen, not just my mother, but the women that I was surrounded by, my aunts, my mom's friends and her colleagues, whoever she was hanging around at the time. I would see them, and it wasn't a relationship with the man, wasn't something that I looked at and said, "Oh yeah, I really want that," because I didn't see any healthy relationships. It's crazy because um I was 31 years old, and I was having a conversation with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
My biological father had gotten out of prison, and I was trying to have a relationship with him, but it was really difficult at the time. Anyways, I ended up getting into this conversation with my mom because I'm asking her questions about how did I come to be, because what my mom had shared with me about my birth and my upbringing, it wasn't nice, you know. Um, and I really was struggling with how I was brought into the world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell that story just real quickly. So my mom was 16, Los Angeles, California, in the 80s. Crack was a big thing. People, your average drug dealer was selling crack, and they were making tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars a week.
Mm-hmm.
My father was one of those men. My mom was 15, 16. She was hanging out in the street. She thought it was cool. And my father seduced her. My father was an older man, and my mom lost her virginity to him. My mom got pregnant. My mom agreed to have an abortion and wanted to have an abortion. My father gave her the money, bought her a car, gave her money and everything. But my aunt told my grandma that, poor her pregnant. My grandma found out who my mom was pregnant by, and she said, you having them kids?
Oh, wow.
Or I'm sorry, you having that baby. And my mom was shocked
That's
to
because
find
of
out,
who your father
guess
was.
what? You're having twins. So my mom was 16 and pregnant with twins. She had just turned I'm sorry. She had just turned 17,
Mm-hmm.
and she was pregnant with twins. My father ended up going to prison in August of 86. Me and my twin brother were born in November of 86. My entire childhood, my mother used to remind me, I never wanted you.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for Pokey, which is her sister, telling my grandma, if it wasn't for Pokey, y'all wouldn't be here. As a matter of fact, when she used to get mad, that's where she would drop me off, when she was tired of looking at my face. And I look exactly like my father and his mother, the same mother who said, them when my father said we wasn't his kids, because he was married. When my father said we weren't his kids, his mom believed him. So his mom didn't treat us well when we were growing up, and my mom didn't want us. So you have to imagine growing up and them, my grandmother and my mom, thinking that they got a cash cow, but my father ends up going to prison, and then he's trying to hide his secret life from his family and his wife, who my grandparents are good people. My grandfather was a state trooper. He had fought in World War II. He had been in Vietnam and he had been in Germany. He spoke different languages. He was well respected in the community. My grandmother was well respected. She was one of those church ladies that was involved in church and everybody respected her. The woman that my father was married to, came from a wonderful family. She was well educated. And here my mama was, the daughter of this woman who everybody knows is going. And I'll tell people in a heartbeat, my grandma was a city girl before the city girls was a thing.
No,
Okay.
it's a girl.
So that's where my mom came from. And so my mom's perception of relationships and how she viewed men,
Right.
it poured into me.
Right.
And mom had very poor relationships with men. She stayed in relationships with men because
Right.
of what it is to her. And like I said, when I was older, around 31 years old, and I'm starting to have adult conversations with my mom and ask her, and she's sharing with me, she's reminding me, she said, she reminded me of my stepdad, and she said, he never lived with us. And I said, what? And she said, think about it. Do you ever remember him being around on a holiday? And I couldn't. She said he only came around on the 4th of July. I did not remember that I did not remember that my stepdad hadn't been around or had not been the partner to my mother that I thought he was.
Mm.
My mom basically was his side chick for 19 years.
So your dad,
My stepdad.
but your biological father was married
Yeah.
when your mom was pregnant with you and your twin brother. Then
Mm-hmm.
you have a stepfather, and mom was a side chick to him too.
Yeah, he was.
No good examples of what, like you said, of what a marriage is supposed to look like, how a healthy relationship is supposed to look, how it's supposed to feel. And so, as a young lady, 16 years old,
Mm-hmm.
dating, losing your virginity, you have no idea of what you're getting yourself
I
into.
want to. I didn't want to. It wasn't something that I was interested in. I didn't think about sex. I didn't think about relationships. So when it came to getting married, there was no value to it. To me, it was just a piece of paper. And it was kind of transactional, but I didn't feel transactional about it. I didn't feel dirty about it. You know,
Right. Which is
that,
the reason why this first marriage was like a business for
yeah, it was like a business transaction. I said, you know what? I can feel good about this. Because
both.
I'm not like my mom. I'm not even having sex.
Right. And so
I wasn't,
you
you
said
know.
you met your boyfriend prior to graduating high school.
Hmm.
And
So the
that
first
relationship
marriage was
is
18.
mhm.
Yes, that's actually my daughter's father.
Okay.
And I met him when I was in high school. I had just turned 17. He was 21, going on 22 when I met him. And even then, he was my first boyfriend.
Mhm.
But I didn't know anything about anything, and he was the first person that told me out. He pray, I can't say that back then in that moment. Today, I can say you prayed on me.
Mhm. 21 years old?
21 years old, I was 17. He was
Yeah.
manipulating me, he was using me, and he was getting me to do things for him that were illegal. So,
And I think that's so much common. It's so common for high school girls to feel excited that a 20-year-old, 21-year-old wants to talk to them and to date them, not knowing that we are victims of sexual abuse, or they are perpetrators who are preying on young ladies in high school, but the young ladies think it's cute. Like you think about the R. Kelly stories of, but she knew how old I was. Yeah, of course she knew how old he was. They think it's a thrill. But then when you get older and you become a mother and you're looking at your daughter, like, why are you dating this older man? It's because of a lack of knowledge. And I think we need to have more conversations with our daughters to let them know about the age appropriateness of dating. Like there's so much that we need to start teaching our young ladies when it comes to dating, because it took you as an adult to say, oh my God, he was preying on me.
yeah.
And so I remember you did mention that there was some domestic abuse in this relationship.
Oh, and the abuse started early on. I
Prior to getting married?
Oh yeah, it started when I was in high school. Um,
Mhm.
I want to say we probably had been dating 2 or 3 months the first time that he beat me up in his house. And he beat me up in his house because I wanted to leave.
Mhm.
Um, we were arguing over he said I had sat on his cell phone, and I didn't sit on his cell phone. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go home. And he was making a big deal over me sitting on his cell phone, or I don't remember what it was, but we were definitely in his house, and his dad was downstairs, and all his dad yelled up and said, Nick. And he literally he told me, don't move. Like, he just stood on top of me, and I was so scared. I had been beaten before in my life by my mom, but um never by a man.
Mhm.
Um and I remember
Why
I
didn't you leave? The
I
first time
I
he put
cried
his
myself.
hands on you, why would you say you didn't leave?
What'd you say?
The first time he put his hands on you, why would you say you did not leave?
I was just afraid. I was afraid of him. Everybody, I mean, I'd watch. The thing is, I knew that he was violent. I never thought that he would be violent towards me. I knew who he was. I knew who he hang around. I knew who he hung around with. I knew his reputation as well.
Mhm.
I never imagined that he would take that anger out on me or have a reason to harm me, because one of the reasons how I ended up talking to him in the first place, excuse
Look,
me,
he needed to get some out of that refrigerator right now, okay?
the reason why I was talking to him in the first place is because he presented himself as a resource to me. He had a car.
Mhm.
That was it.
The resource that he had for
The
you was the
resource
car.
that he had that was important to me at that time in my life was a car. And
Wow.
you know what? When I look at my other relationships that I've had, I
Mhm.
realized that I I needed something at that time in my life, and that person met that need, and so I settled every single time.
Yeah. Yeah.
At the time, the need that he met was he had a vehicle. That was the
The
great.
vehicle was something big.
He had a vehicle. He could pick me up from school, and it was cool. And a lot of people knew him. You would say his name, and people knew the name automatically. And I'm not even gonna lie. I remember today, 36 years old, today, when I look back at me smiling and smirking at somebody saying, "That's Mac 10, bitch."
So that's who you were referred by someone else's B.
And I would laugh and be like I would walk by and people would say, "Oh yeah, that's Mac 10, bitch." Or I'll never forget one time I came home. I was in the military and I had a rental car, and I pulled up, and I pulled in his neighborhood, and
Mhm.
he had a bunch of the guys that he hung out with that's in his gang, and they was all outside, and they was all, they didn't know who was pulling up in the car.
And you're not from here, just to clarify, you're not from Virginia. Where were you living at this point?
Well, at the time I was in Las Vegas. I grew up in between Southern California and Las Vegas,
Right.
but
I want to bring the importance of where you're talking about when you talk about games and
oh, that's in Las Vegas. So
things.
I was home visiting from the military home in Las Vegas because he was still living in Las Vegas even though we were married.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, I rented a car and I pulled up and I went to the neighborhood that he hung out in, and they were not familiar with the car. So
Mhm.
everybody was on their toes and watching. And when I pulled up and I rolled down, I'll never forget, they was like, "Oh, that's 10 main, bitch."
Oh, the main one. Not
That's
even
I
that's
swear.
the word right there, name.
I remember
Yeah.
I just thought it was, and then I even pulled my shirt up because at the time I had his name tattooed right
Oh
here.
wow.
It's now covered, but I had his name. So, I pull up in the car and I'm like this, and they couldn't see I got out of the car so that they could see. It's so stupid.
You just knew you was doing something.
I don't know why I was so proud to claim him, or why. Maybe because I never thought that anybody would,
Yeah, it was a big thing to get married. So you're married,
yeah.
18 years old. You joined the military after marriage.
No, I was in the military when I got. It was
So
yeah, I
you
was.
went straight from high school into the military.
Yeah,
And
that's able to see.
mhm,
Hey, you get treated a whole lot better if you married. You get a whole lot of stuff you can do when you're married in the military versus when you're not.
Yeah.
So
And what support did you get from the military, even being in a domestic violence relationship? Any support at all?
support during the time I was being abused.
Any, yeah, any kind.
So he eventually did come to Georgia, where I was stationed at Fort Benning. And the same way that I went into the marriage thinking that, oh, I'm going to get all of these advantages because I'm married. Well, when you're in the military and your spouse does anything, guess what? Whatever your spouse does, you are also responsible for.
Wow.
So all of the trouble that he was getting into on base was coming back on me. He was the one abusing me, and he was refusing to go to counseling. So
Mhm.
because he was not showing up to the counseling sessions, but I was, they were saying that I was out of order and I was getting written up for him not coming to counseling.
They don't
We
talk about that
had,
part.
yeah, we had so many incidents of domestic violence. He wouldn't show up to court. They kicked him off of base.
Hmm.
And then when they kicked him off of base, then I had to go off base. And then I was getting, because I we were living on base together. He was doing stuff that he was not supposed to do outside of putting his hands on me. He was doing stuff on base that he wasn't supposed to do. He ended up getting kicked off base. I ended up having to move off base with him.
Right.
Didn't even want to be in a relationship with him at that point, but I was forced to move out of my military quarters on base and move off base to an apartment because he wasn't allowed to be there. And then they were, because I was in a, when you're in the military, you are responsible for your dependents and anybody that you bring on base. Anything that they do, you can be held responsible for. And so he didn't care that I was in the military, and the military didn't care that he was abusing me. So when I was showing up to work late because he would take my card,
Mhm.
I would be calling. I would tell them, hey, we just got into. There was one time he was on his way driving me on base, and he kicked me out, literally kicked me out of the moving car. Was punching me, and somehow, some way, got up and he kicked me out of the car.
Wow.
And I called from the gate. I walked to the gate to get into the base and
Hmm.
called my unit and told them what happened, and I still got written up. So the military does not handle domestic violence really well, especially in Fort Benning, somewhere where you got Ranger School, you have infantry, you have all of these. It's very
Right.
so
Right.
um and I there wasn't a lot of female leaders around to talk to, and the ones that were, it
Hmm.
nobody was providing me any feedback. Nobody was checking on me. It was one of those things where you can handle your. I cannot recall anybody providing resources to me or telling me what to do or how to cope. It was like, go to therapy and that's it. And today, all of the resources that I know that are available, all of the organizations that exist, all of the laws that are in place to protect women, whether you're in the military or not, I sometimes I get so angry at their lack of protecting me and helping me,
Right.
because he also cleaned out my bank accounts. He also destroyed my credit during that time. He's the reason why I can't get a USAA membership back, you know, because of
Wow.
that he did. So in that same breath where I thought, oh, I'm going to get all of these advantages from being married, what a lot of times people don't realize is, yeah, you might get these benefits from being married, but also keep in mind that you're also responsible for that person all
Mhm.
the way around.
Yeah.
So all of the things that they do, you're also responsible for them financially. The debt that they create, the things that they do. I was not prepared for that.
Do you think there should be a class like when children, because that's what you were. You were a child going into the military, getting married. Should there be a class for these young children who want to get married, or do you feel like we make our bed, we gotta sleep in it? We get to live the.
Um,
What do you think?
I would say in the military, if you are planning to get married, I think that there should be a policy where if you are active duty
Hmm.
and you get married while you're already active, you should there should be a process that you should go through. You should have to notify your unit in advance that you plan to get married.
Right.
And and I say that not because you need permission, but also outlining, hey, do you know that when you get married, you are responsible for this? Do you know when you stay married to somebody, a lot of people don't realize how militaries how the military can affect your family and the decisions that they can make and what they can enforce or not.
Right.
And
Right.
so if there was some kind of a class that said, hey, if you're active duty and you get married while you're active duty, you have to tell us beforehand, go through this class. Or maybe, within a certain time frame, maybe within 90 days or 6 months or something of you being married, you having to take some type of a course or class or sign off to understand
Yeah, because it's
the
just
legalities and
right.
abilities that
Right. To
being
even
married.
help reduce the divorce rates, because I'm pretty sure divorce rates are high because so many people are getting married for the wrong reasons. One of the things you said, the military said if they wanted you to have a family, they would have issue you one. And I've heard this saying before with one of my other contributing authors for Life After Divorce, Turning Pain into Power. And if that's the mindset of the military, are they really encouraging healthy families? Are they doing their part to help reduce divorce in the military?
No. Now today, there are tons of programs out there. As a matter of fact, I have a Facebook friend of mine, her nonprofit, which is out of Northern Virginia. That's exactly what she does.
Okay.
She has tons of demographics and information about people who get out of the military, like the percentage of people who stay married in the military, or when they leave the military, the divorce rates are ridiculously high. And so her nonprofit actually does programs with couples to help them stay together. That's exactly what she does.
Good.
A lot of people don't understand what you're getting into when you marry into the military, and there are expectations on both hands that a lot of times they're just not familiar with, and they think they can just blaze over, especially when it comes to money. When it comes to money and retirement and pension and benefits and your responsibilities, a
Yeah.
lot of people know, hey, when it's a man in the military, they treat men completely different than they treat women in marriages.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't that's a whole nother
That's
topic.
another interview. Like this is only marriage one. I feel like we should be saying we'll be right back after these messages. We got to go into your marriage number two. Okay. So
Okay.
married from 18 to what age?
Um. Okay. So with Brian, that's my daughter's dad, of course.
Mhm.
Um. We were. I believe I was 21 or 22 when I got the actual divorce paperwork.
Mhm.
But our actual marriage, didn't last that long. It just took me that long to file the paperwork because who cared?
So how did you get out? Like he seemed like he was like a hard head, knucklehead. How was it? How was it getting out?
Prison. Oh, I got out. He went to prison for my attempted.
Oh,
So,
oh! I,
our
I was about to jump ship too early.
our relationship was very abusive. He never stopped. He did it while I was in.
Oh, wow.
It was while I was in high school, while I was in the military, when I got out of the military, when I was pregnant with his child. I had actually filed for divorce. Um, I filed for divorce in August of 2003.
Mhm.
I found out I was pregnant October 3rd after he had beat me.
Wow.
So I
So
was
attempted murder. He was arrested for. Was he convicted for it as well?
no. So that charge that I did not file charge. Now he could have killed me. I was in the hospital and I actually wanted to die. I found out I was pregnant.
Wow.
That's the time that I found out I was pregnant.
So this is
And
your first child, your second child.
that's my first and only child.
Okay, so your first child. That's how you found out you was pregnant. So
Um,
he goes to prison or jail.
he goes to jail. I
Mhm.
realize I don't want to raise the baby by myself. He gives me the whole spiel. He wants to be a dad. He wants to be in my life. He's gonna change. So he stays in jail for I think the first 2 or 3 months of my pregnancy. He was in jail. He got out, and I thought that he was gonna be everything that he said he was, but it was all lies. He just told me all that stuff because he wanted to. He didn't, but he got out and he continued to abuse me the whole time while I was pregnant. And almost uh my daughter was 1 when
Mhm.
I finally decided I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm going to leave. And I got up and I left in the middle of the night and left everything.
Wow.
And I want to say a few months later, that's when the second guy, the new guy, the second husband, started pursuing me. Probably 6, 7 months later.
Okay. So prior to your divorce being finalized, you meet somebody else.
So I meet someone else, and it was his proposal that made me get the divorce in the first place, or else I would have never really filed for divorce.
What
So
this
basically,
gentleman, was he in the military too?
he was in the military as well. Yeah, he was in the Air Force. So with Brianna's dad, how I ended that, I gotten out of the military. A few months later, I found out I was pregnant. I had already filed for divorce by the time I found out I was pregnant. Um, he went to jail. I did not show up to court, so they did not have a wit. They didn't have not have a strong case.
So
He
that's why the
got
charges got dismissed.
community. Yep, he got community service, anger management classes, a whole bunch of fines, and he didn't go back to jail. He got out. He continued to abuse me for the remainder of my pregnancy, and then after I had my daughter, he continued to abuse me. I was afraid that I was going to die. He was going to kill me. So I got up and I left one day. And a couple of months later, or the following year, August, so almost a year later, is when he set me up to attack me again. And he tried to kill me that time. And he ended up going to jail for that. And at the time in Nevada, the law had just passed making strangulation a felony as well. So he was one of those cases that was circulating in the media because it was one of the first cases to be prosecuted in the state due to the high amount of domestic homicides that come from strangulation. That's why the law had been passed.
Yeah.
So he ended up going to prison. And when he went to prison, of course, I moved on for good. I was able to date, freely
Great.
without
Yeah.
worrying him hurting or harming the person that I was dating. And that's how I met my second husband. And I was so mean to him. He just kept on pursuing me, and I just didn't want nothing to do with him.
Well, do you think that you were ready? Was it because you were being mean to him, or do you feel like you, like thinking back to that time frame, that you weren't in a healed place to move forward?
It, I was too young to think about that.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about whether I was healed or not. I was thinking about, I don't have no couch at my house. I don't have a vacuum. I don't know how to pay for Pampers. I'm going to tell you, you want to know how I ended up on a date with him? He was calling me. I was in this apartment. I had moved into this apartment. I literally had nothing, no furniture, no bed, no nothing. Remember, I left with nothing.
Right.
I didn't think so. Me and my friend Veronica are sitting on the floor, and he kept calling, and he kept saying, "Let me take you out." I swear to, man, I'm sorry. I promise you, this is the only time I ever did this in my life. I was hungry. He was calling, and she was like, "I'm hungry," and I was like, "I'm hungry." He was like, "Do you want to go to PF Chang's," which is one of my favorite restaurants at the time. And she was like, "Go and order food, and then I'm gonna call you and leave." And I was like, "Cool, I'll do it, whatever." So I go to
Got a date because you were hungry.
yes.
With them. Look, I put in my notes from thug life to sophisticated life because of something you said.
I literally went out to eat with him, and I never came back home.
What do you mean you never
We
came back home?
talked all night.
Oh wow. So you fell for him more than you thought you would.
It was the first time that I was able to have intelligent conversation. It was an intelligent conversation with a black man.
Mm-hmm.
And he just seemed so respectful. And I'm coming from this being Mac 10 bitch to, talking to this man who seems so intelligent and educated, and he like I said, he was not attractive to me, but it was his mind, the things that he was saying, and his dreams. And we had a lot of
Give you.
from our childhood. My mom was a drug addict. His mom and his father were a drug addict. He was raised by his grandmother. He had joined the military right out of high school. I had joined the military right out of high school. We both had a desire to do more, be more, go above and beyond. We were both on the rise in our career and doing things that neither of us, our background wasn't reflective of the life that we were living or the life that we were going for at the time. And that to me at the time seemed like something that was so appealing. I remember my aunt had met him. One of my aunts had met him, and two of my aunts had met them at the same time. And one of them, she was like, he gay. Oh yeah, he's definitely gay. Even at our wedding, there's literally actual video at our wedding of my auntie Jeannie taking the mic and while the pictures and saying, y'all know he gay, right?
No, she didn't.
I swear.
Into the mic.
I swear, my auntie Jeannie Edmondson, yes, she did. She said it right into the mic. Y'all know he gay. When she walked in to the wedding, when she walked in and we were taking pictures, it was some people, his parents were there, his adoptive parents were there, and she was like, who these white people? Like,
so your auntie was just acting up, as we said.
And so so she tells the mom, she's like, y'all know he gay? Like,
I don't know, was he gay for real?
And he did. He was gay. But I mean,
and it's not funny that he was
later.
It's just funny that she knew what she was talking about.
Yeah. So one aunt was like, he's gay. And the other one was like, it's just something about him. I don't know. And I remember telling that particular, the same aunt, the one who wasn't calling him gay. I remember saying, Auntie, I've never met a man like him. Like, he has his life together. Like, I had gone to his house and he had matching furniture all over his house. Like, everything went, like, he had curtains at his house.
But that's not why they thought he was gay, is it? Because he had matching furniture.
I'm saying that I was like, I wasn't thinking that he was gay.
Right. Like he was into style.
Well put together. Who has his life together. Like, everything about him. He was such a gentleman. He always opened doors for me. He always treated me well. He always went above and beyond. He would bring me flowers to my job and like he would do all of these things that I and nobody in the women in my family, they're not used to a man showing you that level of respect or love or care or adoring you.
Right.
No one had courted a woman in my mind, in my life. So it was like, it blew my mind that he would come to my job and bring flowers or buy me lunch, and he wasn't asking me for sex. And I was like, at first I didn't want to take anything from him. What you think, because remember, the way sex is transactional. Right. Men only do for you when they want things from you. And he didn't want anything from me. He never pressured me to have sex. And that was one of the bigger things in the relationship, is that when I was younger, I never wanted to have sex. I didn't like it. It didn't feel good to me. I didn't enjoy it at all. I didn't like my body. I didn't like people touching me. And he was okay with it. So you got to imagine that I was dating this man and married this man, and we were not having sex.
So y'all were married and still wasn't having sex.
Mm-mm. And I thought it was because he respected me and my wishes.
It was because he was gay.
So I was blinded. I was like, he treats me so well and he never pressures me to have sex. And
did you find out why did he marry you if he was gay?
Well, he was engaged to another man at the time. So when I was going to his beautiful house, he had a roommate.
Hold up. I'm engaged to a man when? Is this prior to
while we were dating? Okay. While we were dating, he was engaged to a man.
I told y'all this conversation was going to get deep and raw. I had no idea that this conversation was going to go this way.
I had no idea that his roommate that he had been introducing me to and who I had been hanging out with, getting to know, was actually his fiance, and they had been on the prowl looking for a woman to have a baby for them.
So they were going to use you.
And he said he fell in love with me, and that's why he started pursuing me. He said that I made him not, this was years later, when it came to the ending. When I
the book. What's the name of your book?
Why didn't you?
You gotta have a book about all this.
I know. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Like, if you knew me and you knew the person that I was, you would know that. If you guys wanted to have a baby, all you had to do was tell me, and I would have had a baby for y'all.
Right.
You did not have to
have any kids with him.
Marry me. You didn't have to do any of that. I would have had a baby for you, but that's what it was. And he literally said, the more time he said, I won't say his name. He
honey, she was about to be a mute for them.
He told me, because I was him and the guy were arguing and stuff, right?
Right.
I was like, why is he making a big deal? He knew you were gonna move out. Like, I ended up finding out, no, guy did not know that he was like seeing me the way that he was seeing me. He was lying. He was saying he was going to school,
Did
that
he
he was,
know y'all got married?
huh?
He didn't know y'all got married.
The guy did not know that we got married until we got married, and he called and he was yelling and cursing, and I thought it was because he had moved out. And I thought that because it was breaking the lease and stuff. So years later, I found out the reason why all of the stuff was escalated with the roommate was really because you were engaged to the roommate and you left him for me. And he told me that being with me and spending time with me made him want to have a normal life. He said that the more time he spent with me, the more he couldn't see himself with a man. He wanted to be with a woman. He wanted to have a family. He wanted to have children. And even when I found out that he was gay, when we had already been married, we had been married for not even a year yet when I found out. Well, I found out the truth. I had heard it, and guess what? Right before our wedding, his sister called and was making those accusations, but he was like, they're just mad because I didn't invite them to the wedding. His biological sister, because he was adopted.
Okay.
So by the time we moved to Virginia and I found out, I even at the time, because of the relationship that I had with him and the potential for the relationship and the things that we had dreamed of, because of the things that we said we wanted together, I was willing to work on it. I was like, okay, so you've been with men before and you've been with women, and let's talk about it. Let's go to therapy. I tried to work. In the beginning, there was a short time period where I was like, we could work this out.
But you were never in love with him, right?
Mm-mm.
Why did you want to work it out with him?
Security. I mean, I guess it was another one of those, I'm never gonna have a man again. And then I got another man and I was holding on to him and I was like, I'm never gonna have a man again. And then I got another man after him. All the time I just kept on thinking, I'm never gonna have a man like this. And they just keep getting better and better and better every time.
That's it, right? I talk about that in my book, Settling Up. It's not that you're settling for something so much better and what's best for you, but you're settling up because he's better than the last one that you were with. But it's not that it was meant for you to have, but it's better.
Exactly. But he just made so much sense to me, and I couldn't figure out a reason why I shouldn't be in a relationship with him. He treated me well. He treated my daughter well. He didn't like the way that I interacted with my family, but we had the same upbringing, just different perspectives. To him, he said, I didn't have anything when I was growing up and nobody helped me, so I'm not helping anybody in my family. I went the same way, but instead, I always am there for my family, my cousins, my siblings. I took my sibling when my daughter was born. I took two of my siblings in. I took my brother and my sister in, who were 13 and 15 at the time.
Wow.
Because my parents had gone to prison. So he was like, I don't get why.
Yeah.
Family. And that was the only argument that we ever had. We never got into arguments. I never ever went through his phone, not one time. All the time that we were together, I never thought to go through his phone. And when I found out he was gay, as a matter of fact, I didn't find out he was gay. My daughter found out he was gay. My daughter had the iPad and was looking at the iPad like this, and she was sitting on the bed, and then she said, "Mommy, look at him booty." She showed me the screen, and it was his ass.
By himself, or was somebody else
He was bent over. No, he was taking pictures of himself.
Oh, God.
And the pictures was scrolling on the iPad. I never, ever, not one time, the whole time we were dating, married, nothing, never went in this man's phone. I ended up going through the iPad, and literally, I could go beyond the time that we had been even known each other, and he had been in group. All this stuff was on his phone, in his Yahoo, in his IM, and his group chats. He had dating apps. He had all this stuff. He had pictures and stuff that was saved literally from years before when we even met.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just blown away. I was floored. I could not believe that he didn't hide anything. But
Wow.
he never gave me, if at any moment I had ever picked up his phone and went through his phone, I could have seen any of that. But I never did. I never in my mind thought, oh yeah, he's gonna hurt me. I never ever thought that that man would be the person to hurt me.
So
And
you
like,
didn't expect it from him, so you had
yeah,
no reason to look.
he treated me well, even
Right.
after, even afterwards, even when I after we decided not to be together, he was in the basement. We
Mhm.
were living in the same house together. Um, we we hung out, and I just I started to realize that he wanted me to have a baby. That's when things really came to a head. We went through fertility treatments. They were unsuccessful, not because of me, because of him.
Mhm.
And I was like, God said, this
That
is not
I
me.
closed that door.
And when I said that I didn't want to have a baby anymore, he changed completely. He
Wow.
was not helping with Brianna anymore. He wouldn't even let my dogs outside. I'd be like, hey, can you? I had two old English sheepdogs. Hey, can you let the dogs out? No, your dogs. Hey, can you pick Brianna up from school? Your kid.
Oh wow.
So when I went have a baby, he turned it into, oh, you don't want to have a baby. That's the whole reason why. And to me, it came off as the whole reason why I'm doing this whole marriage thing with you is so we can have a baby. And now you don't want to have a baby. What the fuck?
He was done. Yeah. He
So
was
he did not so he was not giving to the relationship anymore. He just became cold and bitter. And then I started finding out more stuff about him. And I just realized I deserve better than this. I don't need you. I ended up getting a job, and I was making six figures for the first time in my career, all on my own. And when I touched that money, legal money,
yeah, for thug life to sophisticated
from
life.
the block to the boardroom, okay? When I touched the legal money and I was getting legal good money in my account on a regular basis, this idea of love in a relationship and holding on to it, it was like,
You
I
ain't
don't
need it no
care.
more. So how did you get out?
That was how I really that's when I really started to start to understand that dynamic
Right.
of I kept thinking that I wasn't like my mom
Mm-hmm.
and her
Okay.
friends and colleagues. I was thinking, I'm not like y'all because I'm not having sex to get whatever I want out of man. He married to me, or that's what I was thinking in my head. But in reality, yes, I was. I was having these transactional relationships
Mm. And it was different things.
with men. I just wasn't, the sex part wasn't involved. It wasn't the provocative stuff. It wasn't the
The need of wanting a baby and to be used. Like, that's crazy. So how did
so
you end it with him?
So we just got a divorce. I found out that he was lying about several things more than just the gay stuff.
Mhm.
Found out that he was lying about his clearance, lying about his background, lying about his education. And when you get somebody knocking on your door who's doing an investigation for a clearance, and they start telling you stuff about your husband and asking you stuff that you have no idea about. And at the time, he was working at the CIA when they started the investigation. And then he quit his job that he was working at the CIA. Who quits a job? And he was making about $130,000 a year, and that was back in 2010. So that was a
That's
significant
good money.
amount.
Yeah.
He abruptly quit his job, and I was like, why? And it was just so much stuff going on. I found out that he was lying. So just as inauthentic as I was being to him about my commitment and what I wanted in the relationship, he also was being inauthentic to me. And I think that we both realized that. And
Mhm.
that's why it was so easy for both of us to go our separate ways.
Right.
Um,
So were you being honest with yourself that you really did want love in a relationship?
I started to desire it, but I
Mhm.
did not start to honestly, I did not start to. No, I still didn't want love.
Okay. So going into now, is this a third marriage or are you talking about your engagement right now? Were you married 3 times or is it married 2 times
No,
and
no, I
engaged?
was actually married 3 times. So I after that after the second marriage, um,
Mm-hmm.
after the second marriage was over, I dated someone for
Okay.
almost 5 years,
Okay.
and
So you slow down with this one and take
mhm,
your time. Okay.
we dated, but he was married.
The entire 5 years.
Hmm. Almost. He got a divorce towards the end. Now that was a little bit different. His wife was mentally unstable. She had been in a mental health hospital. I actually met him and was actually supporting him and his family. Me and a group of ladies were supporting him and his daughters.
Mm-hmm.
I literally fell in. I enjoyed who he was as a person,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved the way that he cared for his daughters and the way that he was loving his wife. And this is being 100% honest. I literally seen the way that he loved his wife. And
Also, you knew he was married.
yeah, I knew he was married. I knew he was married from the beginning, but we weren't dating in the beginning. We,
Okay.
we had met. I used to do meetup. I used to have a meetup group, and I
Mm-hmm.
used to do mommy and me dates all the time. And he was a man. He was coming to my mommy and me stuff
Okay.
with his daughter. He didn't tell me that he was married at first. I just thought that he had the one daughter. And then
Okay.
one day we were talking. My brother has schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same brother that I've had since he was 15.
Yeah.
My brother has schizophrenia. My brother was staying with me, and I've always been transparent about my life and sharing
Right.
my story. And so I was sharing with others about my experience with my brother with the schizophrenia, and he ended up confiding in me and telling me, my wife has. We were out to eat one day, and he was like, "My wife has schizophrenia," and I was like, "Your wife, your wife." Um, and he had never hit on me.
Uh-huh.
We literally had just been hanging out. He was the only man that was coming to this to
Right.
my
Got connected.
daughter. And then I found out that he had a daughter who was less than 1 year old. And he started telling me all these problems that he had with his wife and what he was going through. And I was like, I thought this man was interested in me. I thought he wanted to date me,
Of
but
course with you.
he did not invite me to dinner tonight. I thought he invited me to dinner because he liked me. He invited me to dinner so he could cry to me and tell me
Right.
how
Wife.
sad he was that his wife was struggling with this disease.
Mm-hmm.
And for weeks, months, weeks turned into months. I would just always, I backed off. Like I cut the feelings off. And I was just somebody who he confided in, who he shared everything with. And I would listen to him. I would make sure that him and his girls were taken care of. She would always be locking him out of the house. She'd be doing crazy stuff. She did not want to be with him. And he was begging her to be with her. He was begging her to get help. And she wouldn't. And she'd be causing all these commotions in the neighborhood. The police were constantly called. She'd been arrested several times. She'd been placed in the mental health hospital several times. So, me and my group of women that we were around, everybody would be cooking dinner for him and the girls, buying
You
clothes.
stayed around for pity?
Huh?
Do you think you stayed around him because of pity?
In the definitely. No, I'm gonna be honest with you. It was a mixture of a whole bunch of different emotions all throughout the year. When I look back at that situation, I realized that I was love bombing him. He wasn't in a position to commit to me. He was grieving the loss of his wife. It's just that he needed resources, and I was a huge resource to him. And why would you let go of that resource, especially when eventually, what was it? It maybe was like 7, 8 months down the road when we had sex. She had kicked him out of the house by then. So she
Right.
had kicked him out of the house. He was living in Maryland with his sister, and he wanted to be closer to his girls. And so he moved. He was staying at my house, and eventually we started having sex.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know what love bombing is when you are giving the person everything that they want, everything they desire, just giving them all the unconditional love that all they see is the love. And eventually those things do slow down,
Mm-hmm.
um,
I
because
buy
you're
him,
giving them a representative. A
yeah, I would buy him things. I would buy his kids things. I would, he didn't have any resources. He was still paying bills and everything at his house. His kids were in private school. He didn't have a whole lot of resources, and
Yeah.
just
So you were there for him where he needed you to
yeah,
be.
I had an extra car. He was using my extra car. He was using my extra vehicle that I had. Next thing you know, it turned into his vehicle for 4 years.
I know you said you were love bombing him. Were you buying his love?
I think so. And
Mhm.
I think so. There's a part of me that, number one, I know that he loved me and he cared for me.
Right.
But also, he had told me so many times in that relationship, I don't want to be with you and I'm not ready for a relationship. He tried to break up with me so many times. And I would not let him break up
What
with me.
was it about him that you were determined to have him
He was better. He was better than the one before. I said, man, I thought I hit the
up in the
jackpot on that last one. No, I hit the jackpot on this one.
you know,
He's
like
Nigerian.
I'm locking this one in.
He was Nigerian. He speaks literally like, okay, so the other one I was like, oh yeah, he speaks Arabic and he speaks Spanish. No, this one speaks fluently French, Efik, Arab, like all of these different languages. He was so cultured. Um, and at the time, I was having an identity crisis, so I really attached myself to his culture,
Uh-huh.
his way of life, his way of living, and things like that. I wanted to be like him.
You were Nigerian at this point.
I yeah, yes. I
Oh my gosh.
everything he told me to change, I changed. And the thing is, what I didn't realize at the time was he was making these excuses about me and saying, I don't want to be with you. Like, oh, you know what? You're young. I was 25 and he
You
was 30.
went through a lot from 18. This is 18 to 25 years old.
Yes.
Hmm.
I was 25. So I was 25 years old and he's 35. He was 36. And he's like, you should go and live your life. And I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to be out in the club. I want to be a businesswoman. So I stopped going out. Every single time he complained about something, a part of me that I was or that I was doing, I would immediately stop it. I would change. I would give him, he would literally have no reason to be. He'd be like, I don't like this friend. I don't like you being a part of this group. You know what? I really don't like that organization that you're affiliated with. It doesn't sit right with me. I felt this, and this. He worked for the World Bank. He was a marketing director at the World Bank. And so he would oftentimes go to all types of fancy meetings and galas and be meeting with world leaders and ambassadors from around the world. And I thought that was amazing. I thought, oh my gosh, look at the man that I got. Look at him. Look at him speaking all these.
You wanted that lifestyle for yourself.
Yeah. And it just went, and you know what? He cheated on me so much. He
Wait a
used
second. So he didn't cheat on you by not just having a wife. He was cheating on you with other women.
so many women. And guess what? Normally you like, oh, that's who he cheated on me with. He cheated on me with men like, that's who you cheated on me with. Damn, you
So when
beautiful.
did you get married?
She beautiful. I want to be like her. I want her to mentor me. like
When
like
you went through an identity crisis, when did y'all get married?
we didn't we were he
5 years.
we were not married. But guess what? I was with him for almost 5 years. He went to Puerto Rico on vacation with his friends and met a girl and had a one night stand. 2 weeks later, he brought her back home. 27 days after that, he was claiming her on Facebook. And 2.5 months later, he married her. After I was with him for almost 5 years.
Y'all never got married.
Nope, we never got married.
And he married somebody else.
He married someone else while we were still,
gosh,
going through
how
it.
did you feel? Like, what was going on through your head once you found out that this man that you had pretty much done everything for to prove yourself to him, that you were deserving of his love, of his lifestyle, of his money, and then he goes and marries.
Have no money. Let's throw that out there. He didn't have no money. I had all.
He was using your money.
Yeah, I was devastated. And one of the biggest reasons why I was devastated is because the whole time I was with him, he told me all the things that he didn't want, that what he didn't like, all of the things that he complained about. He always made a big deal. No, he didn't like me wearing makeup. He didn't like me wearing, like, having a lot of color on my face, no color on my nails, no long nails, no weave. He was very conservative about my clothes. Like, I could not show any skin. Um, the whole like, oh, heels, I was not allowed to wear heels while I was with him. Like, I never ever wore heels. I would have to, if I wore heels, so I would literally leave the house in flats and then go home, go to work and change, have heels to change to at work, because he did not like me wearing heels. There were so many things that he tried to control in me. It's crazy. The woman that he got with, that he married, Instagram model.
From.
Instagram model. She got her ass out, her titties out all the time. She wear little bitty outfits. She dyes. She's Puerto Rican. She dye her hair colors every couple of months. Every time you see her, she looked like a different person. She would have red hair, blonde hair, black hair, brown hair. She had colors in her hair. She wore long nails. She always had her body out. She would go to the school and pick the kids up. I remember him calling me to complain that Desiree is going up to the school, because the kids go to a school that's a church. Right. He was calling me to tell me that she's picking the kids up, and that he was so embarrassed that he pulled the kids out of school. But when I was with him, he wouldn't pull the kids out of school, and he was paying $1,200 a month for the kids to go to that school that he couldn't afford. He was paying $1,200 out of his pocket so that I could help pay the bills at his house. I was paying all the bills in his house so that he had the ability to keep his money, and he was paying them. And I'm like, we could save money, put those kids in regular school. Loudoun County has the top schools in the country. Mm-hmm. Loudoun and Fairfax County have the top schools in the country. They have the highest median income earners in the United States. There are good schools. Put them in the school. He wouldn't put them in the school, but he was so embarrassed by her that he pulls them out of school and puts them in regular school. So all of these things that he's doing with her is basically making me realize that she basically, what I learned from that is she's her own woman. Mm-hmm. And she was confident in who she was. Yeah. Allow him to change her. So I realized, that's when I really realized, like, it wasn't me. It was me, but it wasn't me. All those little things that he was picking at, that wasn't the reason why he was picking at me. Right. It wasn't that he didn't like the clothes, because she's wearing the clothes and has her nails done and she's wearing all this makeup and has the extensions, and she's a party girl and she drinks and she smokes, and like, he made a big deal about how I was parenting my daughter, yet this girl's daughter both of her daughters have, social media pages. They're inappropriate. They got all types of clothes on, but he was super strict about me and saying, he was telling me that he did not like he basically told me he did not like the mother that I was, because the way that I'm mothering was not the example that he wanted for his girls. But you got this woman and her two kids that are just like her. Mm-hmm. And I kid you not, my daughter, we had moved. My daughter was on Snapchat or TikTok or something and came across the girl's video. She was so by the video, she sends it to him and says, "Isn't this your stepdaughter?" And he writes me and says, "Why is Brianna stalking? Why do you have Brianna looking at?" I said, "I didn't do that. Brianna did it on her own." Brianna seen the girl and was like, "Look at them, they shaking it." I sent it to him. I looked at it and I'm like, "So this is okay?" And he was like, "I'm not their father." Whoa.
Wow. In the book, Life After Divorce, the anthology, Tanisha, one of the contributing authors, she talks about self-identity, of how we sometimes lose ourselves for the sake of a relationship, the sake of love, the sake of trying to keep a man. And I think this is a perfect example of how you have to be true to who you are. Because if we change who we are trying to get a man or keep a man, it's not going to keep him. It's not going to keep him. And then you're fighting, trying to figure out, who am I? Yep. I don't know who I am. So you go through this hard breakup. because that's what it was. It was a hard breakup where 5 years you were close to common law marriage.
Mhm.
Where are you at right now when it comes to relationships?
So I'm no longer, so my daughter now is 15. Anna will be 16 in June.
Okay.
And I am pregnant.
Oh, the big reveal was really nice.
There's a baby in there.
How are you?
So I'm pregnant and I am engaged.
Congratulations.
I didn't have to beg for it or nothing.
And you get to be true to who you are.
It's different this time. I
Mhm.
swore off marriage and everything. I said it's not for me. I don't want it. It's just a piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything. I used to joke. I said marriage just means you die, get your shit. I don't gotta fight nobody for it. That's what it means. It doesn't mean anything to me. Um, I'm skipping up a whole lot of healing,
Yeah.
therapy,
Good.
treats, reading. That happened in between because that 5 year that relationship that ended in 2016.
Okay. So you gave yourself a little
Ac-
break in between.
yeah, that ended in actually it ended in 2015.
Hmm.
um he got married to her in March of 2016.
Okay.
When he got married to her in March of 2016, I I could not take seeing him. He would take her. I would see them too often around town. He took her to all the places that we would go to. We would bump into each other constantly at the movies, at the restaurants. We would go out places. I would take kids. I would take the kids. I would go to the places that we normally went to, and I just kept bumping into them, and it was just too much for me. And I had an opportunity to take another job in Hampton Roads, and I took it. I hopped on it. It paid half of what I was making
Yeah.
before,
But the move was worth it.
but I needed to move, and I needed new opportunities, and I just needed something different. And so I left. I
Mhm.
left abruptly, left the area, left all my friends, left him and everything. And I
Wow.
moved to Hampton Roads, and I had already started my counseling before then,
Okay.
and I already been seeing therapists. I had attempted to see therapists with him, but all it did was make me realize even more that this man don't want you. He don't want to be in a relationship with you. He likes you. He loves you. Nah. So I moved to Hampton Roads. I continued on my healing journey. I started doing things for myself. I started being by myself. I spent a whole lot of time by myself. I wasn't dating. I was not talking to anybody. There was nobody that was lingering. I just took a lot of time to be by myself and be with my daughter and
Mhm.
learn her. And I dove into my job, and then I dove into community service, and moving
Good.
and roads was something for me that was really life changing. I always tell people I grew up here. I
Mhm.
grew up in Virginia. There were so many things that I didn't know. And I remember when I started my therapy journey, I remember crying. I was so miserable. I don't even know. I just had a wave of crying that was about to start just now. I remember when I started the therapy journey, and I went through one therapist after the other because I had wanted to use my company's EAP. So I was just contacting all these
Mhm.
therapists and making these appointments. And I would go to the appointments, and they said, what are you here for? What made you come to therapy? And I'm like, I'm so devastated. This man broke my heart. And every single time I went to a therapist at the second or third session, after I didn't poured my heart out about what's happening, they would be like, "So tell me about your childhood."
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Hold the fuck, man!
Right.
I did not come here to talk to
There's that
y'all."
connection that we all just want to keep skipping the childhood, the inner childhood trauma. and the relationship, the men we choose, it all stems back to who we were as children.
If I'm going to tell you, every adult that's out there right now, every problem that you have in your life, and especially if that problem is reoccurring over and over again, you have to understand that you've been conditioned and that there's something that needs to change in you. It's not everybody else that's hurting you. You're not always the victim. That's what I learned. I was making myself the victim, but it was because of my own choices.
Yes.
It was because of me just not knowing better. So I'm going to therapy and I'm telling you, I went through 14, yes, 14 different therapists.
Wow.
Every single time I went to a therapist, and after you get into the second or third session with the therapist, after you tell them what initially made you reach out, they're going to start saying, tell me about your childhood.
Right.
And
Your relationship with your mom, your relationship with your dad.
Tell us who was the disciplinarian. Tell us how you learned. I would get so angry. I would get so angry. And I say, look, you see this person in front of you today. Do you see this successful, well put together person? Don't ask me about my childhood. I am who I am today in spite of my parents, in spite of my upbringing, not because of it. And I used to tell therapists all the time, there's nothing that you're going to find in my childhood that's going to help me, help you, help me get over this fucking heartbreak. It's nothing. That's what I kept telling them.
Yeah.
Until I got a Black therapist.
Put you in your place, huh?
And I remember before she would even take my appointment, she sent me all of these sheets in the mail to fill out about myself. And I remember she called me the day of my appointment. She had taken my appointment and it was July 4th. It was the 4th of July. I don't know why this lady working on the 4th of July. I don't know. It was the 4th of July and she called and she said, hey, I had you scheduled for an appointment today, but I realized you did not complete all the paperwork. So I'm gonna have to reschedule you.
Oh, wow.
He complete all the paperwork. She said, no, you didn't. You skipped past this part. It was the mom. It was the parent. It was the mom, the dad, the childhood stuff. I didn't fill any of it out. I thought that it was irrelevant. She said, unfortunately, I cannot see you if your paperwork is not all completed. I ended up going to her office. I was mad. So I ended up going to her office and I'm like, you got paid for this. Like, you're supposed to see me anyways. We sat down, we had a little chat, and lo and behold, she ended up talking me. Courtney is her name. Courtney ends up talking me into filling the paperwork out. So I fill the paperwork out and I tell one of my friends who's also a psychotherapist, and she tells me, get this book, and the book is called Step Coupling.
Step coupling.
Yeah, because I call a friend and I'm like, I can't believe I keep going to all these therapists and I'm telling her, mind you, she is a this is a friend, a good friend of mine who I hang out with all the time. She heard all my trauma stories. Not one did she ever be like, yeah, you really should tell the therapist about your childhood. We skip right all over all of that. But she told me to get this book. And she, if you really want to fix your relationship with him, if that's where your goal is, here's this book. And I got this book and it's called Step Coupling. And I ordered it. I ordered it off of Amazon immediately and it came in the mail. And the first few pages of the book, and this Step Coupling book, it starts asking you, tell me about your childhood and your upbringing and how you were raised. And I'll tell you, and basically it broke down every single step. This is why. This is why, and this is why. And if you had a parent that did this, and if you had a parent that did that, and if your mom was this, and if your dad was this, and if this was the dynamic, and it just broke everything down. And I needed to see it that way. And I probably got through just a few pages in the book. And I went back and I said, I do need to address this. I did not realize how important my upbringing was, but when you think about it, it just doesn't make it doesn't make sense why we wouldn't understand how important our conditioning is and how we cope as adults. Right. What we see as healthy, what we see as love, what we see as hard work, what we see as normal, what we accept, how we cope, how we handle stress, our lifestyles, the jobs that we choose, how we value money, all else, so many, everything everything about you and who you are, really, it stems how you deal with it, how you cope with it, what
Yeah.
motivates you. It all comes from your childhood. And if you don't understand that, you just out here in the world just living,
Yeah. Yeah.
blaming other people, blaming other people for your problems that you haven't addressed. And like I said,
It's not that you're blaming yourself for your childhood trauma, but just acknowledging where you need to start. Where do you need to get started to heal? Because we got to heal that baby girl. We got to heal the baby boy that's within us. And so that's why it's so important. I'm glad that you were able to get therapy and counseling. Coaching is good for you, reading good books, doing all those things, but remembering that healing is a journey. It's
mhm,
it's not a sprint, it's a marathon because you got to keep going. So
yeah.
you're still doing therapy and going, everything's going good with that.
I, I will never ever give up therapy. Okay, I got a lot of stuff I got to get through, and it's still, it's still everyday stuff. So I'll probably never. I have an amazing therapist,
Um,
who is a black woman who also has ties to Nigeria.
but
So
you're not Nigerian.
yeah, yeah. Her husband is from the same place as the guy that I dated
Oh,
those
God.
years ago. They're from the exact same
It
place.
was more
Nigeria.
understanding of what you were going through with him, being that she was from the same area when it comes to culture. So
Oh yeah. So the cultural perspective, it's because I tell people all the time that relationship influence. Today, he and I have a great relationship.
wow, okay.
And as a matter of fact, he has asked me to marry him probably 50 times
So he's
since,
no longer with the Puerto Rican.
mm-mm. Since 2017. That man has asked me to marry him probably once a month.
So I'm going to give you 1 minute to just boast on your current boo. Since you talked about these other guys so much, what do you want to share with us about your current man, your main man? We can say it too late. Which one? Tell us about your new man.
I am happy. I'm happy, and I'm at, when I started dealing with him, I was at a place where I didn't have to choose him. I didn't need him for anything. He didn't need me for anything. And I knew that before I got into another relationship that I needed to be completely whole. And
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody to have to complete me. And I just wanted someone to compliment me. And I think that what makes us work really well is that he's very independent. He doesn't want anybody to do anything for him. And so am I. And I think we're both very headstrong, and determined. But he is just an amazing man to me. I mean, I he might be, I don't know. I'm sorry. I wasn't even prepared for that. He's such a good man to me.
Aw.
He treats me so
I'm sure you
well.
give so many
He,
ladies hope.
he thinks of me in ways that I've dated a lot of men before. I've dated, millionaires and vice presidents and directors and pastors and I've dated, D list celebrities and whatnot. I've been around. I've dated all kinds of men before, and he's not a man that has everything, but he has everything.
Hmm. That's deep right there.
The way that he loves me, the way that he takes care of me, the way that he sees things, the
Wow.
way that he listens to me, the way that he cherishes me, the way that he protects me. I don't have to be anything. I can be myself and he can be himself and I don't have to change. And we compromise really. He makes me feel safe in a way that I don't think that I've ever felt so safe and secure in my life. And the greatest thing is there's nothing that I need from him.
Oh, I love it. I love that when we talk about turning pain into power, like the way we started. Who knew that we would end up right here, right? Like, this
Now,
is beautiful. It's beautiful.
and
So
here having a baby, and I would never. I just thought that was
finish.
never gonna have a kid again, and I can't be. I'm so happy to be pregnant and to be bringing a new life into the world and to be sharing that with him, and he's an amazing father um
Congratulations.
already. So
I love it. I love it.
ugh,
So to wrap this up, words of advice to those who may be listening, those who may tune in a little later. How do they turn their pain into their power?
be yourself. I know that sounds cliche as hell. Yourself. Focus on you and don't let anybody change that. You have to have your non negotiables. There are certain things that you say, you know what? I know the life that I want to live and what's going to make me comfortable. If somebody, you want somebody that complements your life, not someone who completes you. I never ever want to be in a relationship with somebody who I can't live without.
Yeah. Yeah, I love
I
it.
never want to be in a relationship with somebody who I can't live without or can't see myself without them being in my life. I
Mhm.
realized that when you are yourself and you're whole and you're happy, you bring so much more to the table in a relationship. Somebody can love and respect you. They're not trying to manipulate you. They're not trying to fill in your holes if you come into the relationship whole.
Right.
They can't change who you are. You want someone to love you for who you are and not love you for who you present to them because some book told you if this is how you should behave in order to keep a man or a woman.
Right.
That's not the way to go about things. The simplest thing that I can say is stay true to yourself. Think about what you want in your life and do that, and don't let anybody move you from that path. If you understand who you are, what you want, what you like, and you have those non-negotiables and say, I'm not changing this about myself. Here's the thing, you can date people and you can be compatible, but your lifestyles might be different. What you want and where you are in your life, it might be different. Don't be so quick to hold on to that person because you think they just meet all of my needs. It's just these one or two things. And if I could just get them to change, no, let them go.
Yeah.
Even if it's one thing and that one thing keeps coming up and it's bothering you, let them go. I promise you, there's going to be somebody who comes around and they're going to meet your needs exactly how you need them met. And the thing is, you can feel good about it because you don't have to lie. You don't have to be someone that you're not. You can be yourself and let someone love you and the authentic version of yourself. If you allow them to do that, you'll have less problems in your relationship because down the road it was, "Well, you never told me that," or "You never." You don't want to do things. You don't want to compromise, especially early in the relationship, and say, "Oh, I know you don't like this." So you're setting an expectation early in the relationship
Yeah.
to say that, oh, if you don't like this, oh, I'll change it. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I think that goes both ways. I think for women at least, those who kind of constantly keep nagging, trying to get somebody to change, to meet their needs, to meet their wants, and being able to say, you know what, you're a good person, you're a great person, but you deserve somebody who can receive you as you are. And I got to let myself go because, it's not that that person might not be the best person, most likely somebody good for somebody outside of what you have, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes our needs and our wants is just greater than what other people can give us. And so being honest with yourself to say, it's not saying that you're a bad person, but I
No.
think somebody else might be better out there who's suited for you to love them the way that you want to love them or receive love. And it's not saying that they're a bad person, but being true and honest, like you said, and getting what you want, and not being a person that got a nag to try to get what
Yeah. Don't put that makeup. If you don't like wearing that makeup, you're not gonna keep that makeup up all the time, baby. Don't wear it.
you.
If
Right.
that outfit, if you don't act like you like golf. Don't act like you like sports and you don't.
Right. Both of y'all need to be true.
Yeah. Don't act like you okay doing that thing and you know you really don't like doing that thing and you just doing it because you like him. Don't do
Yeah,
it or you
we gotta
like her.
stop forcing stuff. We gotta stop forcing it because it's
Just
not gonna last. Somebody's gonna get tired eventually.
don't rush into it. Just literally be yourself, and what's meant for you will literally come your way. It doesn't have to be forced or manipulated. You don't have to go and figure out, oh, what do I need to do to trap this person or get this person? It doesn't work. Why would you want that? Why would you want somebody who you got to keep begging and talking to, begging you to treat you the way that you want to be treated, love you the way that you want to be loved?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jasmine. This was a outstanding conversation. I knew it was going to be good. Tamika said, great conversation, very insightful to knowing who you are, regardless of any relationship. So I want to say thank you. I knew this would be a good one.
You're welcome.
Make sure you share this. You can catch the replay on my Facebook page, Coach Dana W. Anything you want to say before we log out? Where can they find you?
Therapy and prayer can go together, okay? I need everybody. I know some people just say pray about it or manifest it. No, you
Yeah.
should talk to someone.
It was
You know,
Jesus.
if you're having the same current issues in your life and it's everybody else and you're always the victim, at one point in your life, you have to decide what you have to take accountability for yourself and say, how am I contributing to this life that I have and the pain that I'm having? And what am I not doing? What boundaries don't I have? What non-negotiables have I not enforced for these things to keep happening to me over and over again?
Right.
And that's really it. So we have to accept accountability for ourselves, and we have to be ourselves and stay true to ourselves. You can't be responsible for other people and their actions and how they treat you. It's not a reflection of you.
Sure.
You have to know, understand that. Just be yourself, baby. Be authentic to yourself and see how life changes around you.
Yes.
Period. That's it.
Period. Yes. Period. Thank you so much. We're gonna say good night on that note. Therapy and prayer. Amen to that. Y'all have a good night, everyone.
You too.